Hey there everyone. Are you a fan of the Lex? Because I've got very good news for all my Lex enjoyers out there. This weapon is a monster. Now, some of you older players that are returning to Warframe after many years may be very familiar with the Lex, and you may like it. You might like the way it sounds, you may like the way it feels, but you've noticed that it's kind of fallen off because of AoE metas. That is no longer the case. This thing got an Incarnon form around 6-7 months ago, and its Incarnon form gives it plenty of AoE potential. And this thing is absolutely monstrous. As you can see here, we're fighting level 200 enemies. This is Steel Path, and it is the Murmur. And the Murmur is pretty tanky. Now, we did take this into the same survival mission on stream, and we pushed it to level 600 enemies. I think that was like 2.5 hours maybe. And we did that without any kind of arcanes on our Warframe that were going to buff its damage. Now, we could have thrown on an Arcane Precision, and we could have also thrown on an Arcane Avenger. And then we could have gotten substantially more damage out of this, but we did not do it with those Arcanes on when we pushed to 600. So if you want more out of your build for just the Lex, instead of running like a Molt Augment, if you don't want to run those, you can throw on an Arcane Precision for increased damage, or you can throw on an Arcane Avenger for increased crit, which obviously, leads to more damage. But anyways, let's show off the build. First, let's talk about the Incarnon upgrades. For our first upgrade, we take the increased damage by 20 on shield break, increased damage by 80 for 8 seconds. This is incredibly strong. It doesn't work all the time, but when it does, it is very noticeable. For our next upgrade, we take the increased magazine capacity by 10%. Keep in mind, this does not apply to the Incarnon form, it only applies to the base, but it is useful in getting charge for your Incarnon form. And fun fact, whenever you leave your Incarnon form, it will refill your base Lex as well. So you can charge up your meter, switch to Incarnon form, exhaust your Incarnon form, and then have a fully charged, a fully reloaded Lex. This last upgrade is very important. We take the increased crit chance by 19%, and we increase crit damage by 0.4. And as you can see, these are the base stats with these Incarnon upgrades in the Incarnon form. So 54% crit, 3.4 crit multiplier, and 44% status. That's in the Incarnon form, and as you can see here, it's not much lower in the base form. Now, for those of you wondering what the Incarnon actually does, you need to get headshots in order to charge it. You can activate it at any point along the meter's charge. It does not need to be full. Obviously, you will get the most out of it if you activate it when it is full. What the Incarnon mode actually does to the weapon, though, is it changes its projectile from a bullet to a wave of radiation that has punch through, meaning it will go through hordes of enemies and through objects such as doors that punch through applies to. This can also hit headshots, and you will hit quite a bit of headshots when you fire into a wave. Very, very strong Incarnon. So in terms of mods, we're going to be talking about Galvanized Diffusion, Galvanized Shot, Galvanized Crosshairs. We're obviously going to take all three of these. We are utilizing the status for the increased damage from Galvanized, and obviously multi-shot's always phenomenal. But on top of all that, we're going to be running a crit build. As you can see the stats on the left, our crit chance is above 100% in both normal form and Incarnon form. I think that the rate of fire of the Lex is pretty slow, so we slot in a lethal torrent to make up that fire rate and get some extra multi-shot while we're at it. For our crit mods, we're going to be running Prime Pistol Gambit and Prime Target Cracker. Pistol Gambit for the crit chance, Target Cracker for the crit damage. We have a really high crit multiplier in our Incarnon form with Target Cracker, a 7.1 times. Now, this is very easy to hit red crits with. I think you're always going to be hitting red crits because of Galvanized Crosshairs. You might even be you might be above 400%. I do believe you're at 400%. I'll throw the math up on screen if we are. So basically, if we're hitting any type of red crit, we're going to be doing 21.3 times the damage. And then if we do have above 400%, we'll be hitting red crits with an exclamation point, bringing that up to 28.4% or 28.4 times the damage every time we shoot an enemy basically and get that red crit. And we will be hitting those quite often, as you can see. So I did run the math, and we are not above 400% crit chance from just these mods alone. We are at 328% from Lex Prime and Incarnon. Keep in mind, this is without any kind of external buffs such as arcanes or like a hero buff, for instance. You will easily be able to get constant 400% crits off on enemies if you do run an external crit increase factor. That being said, if you don't run any of those, you still have a 28% chance of that crit being enhanced to a red crit with an exclamation point. Now, for our elemental damage, we decided to go with Corrosive by mixing Jolt and Pistol Pestilence together. Corrosive is great base damage, and its status effect is pretty strong because it reduces armor. And with the addition of the new Archon shards in Whisper of the Walls, you can fully strip armor now by having 14 stacks of Corrosion. For the Arcane, we are running Secondary Deadhead. I always like to run Secondary Deadhead unless it is very inconvenient or simply not possible to hit the head. Now, as I stated before, you're going to be hitting plenty of headshots with this, so having the extra damage and the buff timer that lasts for 24 entire seconds is pretty strong. Plus, you get an extra 30% to headshot multiplier and minus 50% to weapon recoil. And, I've said it many times, but you can see in the gameplay too, it is very easy to hit this headshot. We always have this active, and it massively boosts our damage. So yeah, this build is a 4-forma build. I'll throw up my mod menu on screen so you know where my polarities are. I also chose not to take an Exilis mod because I don't have any mods that I really want to run here. The build seems pretty airtight here. I wish I could maybe throw in a Murmur mod somewhere, but honestly, everything here is being utilized to its fullest. So if you do want that kind of external damage buff that a Bane mod would provide you, consider subsuming Roar onto something, since Roar is calculated the same as a Bane mod. As far as the Exilis slots go and me not finding anything to run, that's a personal thing. If you want to run something in that slot, go ahead. You're going to have to throw in another Forma for it, most likely though. Probably for your Pistol Gambit to cut down the cost so you have enough room there. And then you might even have to throw another Forma on if you don't want to run a Naramon focused mod in the Exilis slot. Just keep in mind, if you do want to use the Exilis slot, that ammo maximum does not affect the Incarnon form. And honestly, the only thing I can really see here is maybe the projectile speed, but then again, I don't know if that actually affects the Incarnon mode or not. For anyone wondering if you want to run a secondary transmutation mod here, I really don't think you're ever going to run out of ammo on the Lex because of how often it's killing. It kills more than it costs. So I have personally never really run out of ammo on this, unless I was like in the process of build crafting and was using builds that weren't working and weren't getting kills. But this build 100% does work and will get kills. It will shred. Ammo will not be a problem for you. Yeah, I also want to talk about the companion a little bit because the companion is very important. Panzerwolfephyla has viral quills. Now this is an extremely important mod because it applies viral statuses and that increases our damage significantly. On top of viral quills, you can also run Tenacious Bond, but it needs to be paired with Bite most likely if you want to be able to benefit from that increased critical damage. And then if you do want to swap out your Prime Pistol Gambit for Creeping Bullseye for an even higher crit chance at the cost of fire rate, you could run a Reinforced Bond mod as well, paired with a Calculated Redirection for increased shield. Now, that will increase your firing rate a little bit more. I still don't feel comfortable giving up my firing rate by putting on Creeping Bullseye. I do like having the fire rate as high as possible on the Lex, so I am still going to keep my Primed Pistol Gambit. That's the Lex build. Let me know what you guys think of the build and what else could go into it to improve it. Thank you so much for making it to the end of the video, and if you found it helpful, please consider giving the video a like and subscribing, as it helps me out a ton and I appreciate it. If you ever want to hang out live, check out my Twitch in the description below. I hope you all have an amazing day. I'm Hatterax, signing off. Peace.